Good evening. It's Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, 6 p.m. Calling the Lakeville Board of Health meeting to order. Is there anyone recording this other than Lake Cam? I hear no one. Let me just read an introduction, seeing we're on Zoom. This open meeting of the Lakeville Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency due to COVID-19. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. Unless participation is required by law, you can participate through Facebook, and it was posted on the agenda. And it says you do not need to have a Facebook account to join this meeting. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. For this meeting, the Lakeville Board of Health is conveying by video conference via Zoom and is posted on the town's website. Let me make sure all members can hear me. Bob Palucci?
I'm here.
Chris Spratt? Edward Cullen, Board of Health agent?
Present.
Okay, and then anticipated speakers on the agenda. I just want to make sure they're here and can hear me. The only engineer I'm dealing with tonight is Zenith Engineering. Jamie Bissonette, can you hear me?
Present.
Okay, and is everyone from your side online and can hear us? Your clients and everybody can hear us, correct?
Murray, can you hear them?
Yes, I can hear everybody. I'll go to mute.
Lauren, can you hear them?
Yes, I can.
And Mike, can you hear them?
Yeah, well, it's all good.
All right, perfect.
Okay, do we have our town council on? Is Greg Corbo coming tonight? Ed, do you know that by any chance? Is he here?
Greg Corbo is on, or he was.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody can hear us. I will start. First on the agenda, 7 Langlois Pines, meet with Zenith Consulting Engineers to discuss local upgrade approval. I'll turn it over to you, Jamie Bissonette from Zenith.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Jamie Bissonette from Zenith Consulting Engineers for the record. If I may, I'd like to pull the filed plan up for review.
Okay.
All right. In front of you is septic repair for 7 Langlois Pines. Approximately a year ago, we had this plan in front of the board for approval, in which we were proposing the leaching field on the other side of the dwelling. It came to our attention after approval from the property owner and the abutter that what was located as a well was actually a leaching field on an adjacent parcel. And so that caused us to have to shift the leaching field to this side of the site. So since then, Niles and Ed have gone out to the site and re-perked it, and we've prepared this plan with updated variances. 2 of the variances are from 400 feet to under 200 feet for the leaching field and the tank. And then there's also a local upgrade approval for separation between the foundation and the leaching field as well. We're not within 100 feet of any well that we know about or have been able to locate. And so we ask for your approval on this upgrade.
Okay, Jamie, thank you. I have just a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Now, on the old plan, I have that one out in front of me. It showed 2 existing wells down on the old plan.
Mm-hmm.
On the new one, one of them says disconnect from pump house to house number 7. What do they mean by disconnect? What is that And what are you disconnecting from?
So from our understanding on talking with the property owner and from Niles' site observations, that's a pump house that goes to a shared well. That shared well, they're looking to install their own well on the lot, which is up in the back now. And they would be disconnecting from that shared well, which goes forward off to the other site closer to Long Pond itself.
So their current water is taken from a shared well now?
That's correct.
You know what property that well is on?
I believe it's on the one that has, that's right next to the existing pump house.
Okay. Where you showed a well and now it says...
Oh, actually, it says existing water line to be disconnected from pump house to house number 7. So, yeah, I believe it's that lot that is right next to the existing pump house.
Okay. So we don't have to discontinue that well at all because it's currently still being used for the other property.
Exactly. The survey company that was hired to do this had located that as a physical well. And that's why the system was placed up in the back at the last time and squeezed in between with some pumps and some other things. But you know, the site conditions and understanding where the adjacent wells now are and this new well, this pushes us to this point here. As you can see, we're just at 100 feet everywhere.
Okay. And is the proposed new well in yet or no? Is that
No, I don't believe it is.
okay? And then the other question, I guess, Jamie, is, well, that's 2 more. There's,
Sure.
on the old plan, you showed some sort of a concrete slab or something out back there. Now the new septic is drawn right over it. Do you know what that is?
Let me take a peek at the old plan.
Square or something? A foundation that needs to get removed, or?
Yeah, it looks like there's a small concrete slab. Yeah, that very well may have to be removed.
It looks like it's right over the new system, correct? It's overlaid right over the top of it?
Yeah, and I'm guessing that it's still, excuse me. Yep, still falls right over it. So yes, that'll have to be removed.
Okay. And then just the last question would be the retaining wall.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's over 4 feet by your contour lines. It looks like we're grabbing 71 existing contour right at the back edge of that wall. And top of wall is 76 you're showing, top of liner.
Yeah, on my plan here, I'm looking at a 72 to a 73 at the base and running along. So I think that we are under the 4 feet.
Now, what about this other corner over where the vent is? Right there. What are your contours going in there?
Let's scroll in and take a peek. This shows a 71, 72, 7, just about a 72. So we can place a spot grade in there to make sure that it's, you know, less than 4 feet.
Okay, can I say something?
Yes, Ed, go ahead.
You're showing the wall inside the overdig. If you look at your 76 contour.
That's true. Right over in here, it appears to go just a little bit beyond it. We can adjust that as well.
Right, but I think when you adjust it, you'll find out that you're not on the 72. You're closer to the 71, as Derek said.
Understood. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that, guys. If we do go over the 4 feet, we would probably look at a terraced application rather than a fence. So our revised plan will take that into account. It'll either be shifted and we can show you that it'll be less than 4 feet, or we'll do a terrace.
Okay. And then just my other concern is the note that designed by others.
Yep.
I know a lot of engineers have been doing that, but I think it's structural with a liner. It's holding the system on the hill.
You know, we've gotten some opinions on that. I'm not a structural engineer, so I don't wanna say one way or another, but you got to remember that it's sandy material. The expectation of a system is not to hold any liquid. It's to let it leach into the ground, especially with 5-minute and inch material. We don't see the occasion where it's going to be holding back tons of liquid in here until it's in failure. But that is something that we'll take a look at and see if we can provide you with some information.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to see what wall you're actually proposing, like a
Yep, not a problem.
block, a paved stone block or something that we can say, this is what's supposed to be here.
Okay.
Up and see an embankment with some riprap thrown off behind it. I just think it should be more as part of the plan approval.
Sure. Yep. I mean, if you can make those two items conditions of the approval, we have no problem with that.
Okay, that was my only question on. I'll turn it over to Bob Plucci to see if he has any comments or on the wall or whatever I was thinking on that. And Bob, you there?
You're on mute, Bob.
Bob Plucci?
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Okay. Yeah, Derek, that was my only, you hit the other stuff. My only thing was that wall that, I'd like to see a detail on that. Actually, we've required it from everybody all these years. At that height, we require something. So other than that, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Chris Spratt, comments?
No, the stuff I thought of, you guys already brought up, and actually between the pump and the wall, and yeah, and actually, I didn't even think of the terrace option there too. But that slope might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it might give them some more usable yard.
But yeah, I'm good, Derek.
All right, thank you. Edward, comments on it?
I think you pretty much covered it, Derek.
Okay. And I forgot to ask Jamie on the abutters. Have the abutters all been notified? Did you get the cards back?
Let me double check here. Certified abutters cards for the Board of Health filing. And
Just to Taunton Water, New Bedford, I believe, all I see.
yep, Taunton and New Bedford. Yep. So we sent notice to Taunton and New Bedford. Let me see.
They might have accidentally got put in with my packet.
Oh, the copies of the receipts there. Yeah. A proof. All right.
Okay. And there's no other abutter we had to notify, correct? Because it wasn't affecting anybody else?
Yeah, I'm not aware of, there was no other affected abutters that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And I think we're over 100 feet, so these are local upgrades. So yeah, I think the only one, we're 14 feet to our foundation, and then it's the water supply. So yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone on Facebook looking to comment on this before we make any decisions?
No comments on Facebook.
No comments. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm fine with this one as long as, like you said, you could redo the plan just to show that wall in the correct location and what the height of the wall, base of the wall, and what you're proposing.
Yep.
I think I would be fine with it.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
I'll make a motion. We approve the 3 local upgrade requests at 7 Langolas Pines with the condition that before the work begins, our agent gets a copy of a retaining wall detail that shows the design, what it's going to be made out of, and the height.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Bob Plucci?
Aye.
Chris Spratt?
Aye.
Derek Maxim? Aye. Thank you on that one, Jamie.
Thank you.
Find my paperwork again. Okay, next on the agenda, we're going to go to 4 Old Powder House Road. Continued discussion from August 5th, 2020 meeting with Zenith Consulting Engineers to discuss requested variances. We had a discussion on this one at the last meeting. I'll turn it over to you again, Jamie.
Thank you. Jamie Bissonette from Zenith Consulting Engineers for the record. Tonight we have Mike O'Shaughnessy. We have Lauren from J&R Sales, and we have the property owner, Murray Wackenheim. We were provided with some information around 1 o'clock today from Ed, and Ed, we do appreciate you forwarding that to us, regarding the advanced treatment and the approvals. And what we found was that the wrong certification for approval was actually sent to your office. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to kind of go through and explain where the correct certification comes from, how we get there, and then we can go through the certification because I know there was some questions on that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to share my screen again so that we can kind of discuss that stuff, Derek.
Yes, go ahead, Jamie.
All right. Thank you, sir. Let's see. All right. So this page right here is the DEP website for approved Title V innovative and alternative technologies. We're giving options in here that you can fast track to, and when you Google certain products, they can sometimes, if you ask for like a fast system, fast 0.5 unit, sometimes it'll bring you to the link that you may not be looking for actual approval under, because the approvals under each of these can actually be different. So when we scroll down and we get to the general use, the general use portion of this has a set of approvals, which are different from the general use section that's further down, which is for secondary treatment. We erred in the fact that we sent the approval for the general use and secondary treatment, but we once Ed pointed out that error, we found out where we went wrong, and we're looking to correct that now. So under this general use section, we scroll down just a little bit to the fast nitrogen reducing less than 2,000 gallons a day approval. And it brings us to an approval that's different from the secondary treatment. And the understanding with the difference is that when you're specifying for secondary treatment, you're looking to be able to take advantage of a reduction. Whether it's a reduction in leaching field size, separation of groundwater, something along those lines. And you can do that for new construction under general use as long as you meet new construction standards. And you can do it for existing houses as long as you've met new construction standards. With the certification for general use that's not for secondary treatment, what this does is this breaks it out and kind of goes a lot more in detail into the effluent loads and treatment types. And it'll actually even say up at the top where it's actually designed for nitrogen reduction. And this is actually a 10-page document as opposed to the for secondary treatment, which is a 3-page document. This goes a little bit more into detail. But the thing that we want to point out is where it says this is subject to the conditions of this approval of any other local requirement. The purpose of this approval is to allow the use of the system in Mass on a general use basis with the necessary permits and approval required by Title V. This certification authorizes the installation and use of the system in Mass. Now, it does also talk about the system may be used for residential facilities with less than 2,000 gallons a day, where a system is in compliance with Title V, existing on site or could be built, and for which site evaluations is in compliance with Title V have been approved by the local approving authority. What we're trying to demonstrate here is that we're not trying to take advantage of a reduction credit by using an advanced treatment unit. What we're doing is we're trying to add an advanced treatment unit on to improve effluent quality before it gets into the ground. And I think that's the main difference and the concern that the DEP would have is that when you're using it under the secondary treatment, in the document itself, it tells you can reduce the leaching field by up to 50%. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to add this on as a treatment unit, to provide enhanced treatment to the document, to the system. And that's what this document, I think, details for us. I think, Mike, did you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yes, Mike O'Shaughnessy for the record. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that at this time that the board allow us to submit this document to you. I don't know if we can do it during this hearing or subsequent to, just to have it as part of the record. Is that going to be an issue for you folks?
I don't have a problem with that. The other board members, Bob Palucci, you have a problem admitting this?
No, I don't have a problem. If they had brought it, we would have taken it. So I mean, if we're just talking about right now the document, I don't care about that.
Right. So one of the issues that came up today seemed to that Ed raised, and I won't speak for him. He seemed to suggest that the DEP approval document did not authorize you folks to grant the variances because it didn't comply with the new construction standards. And as Jamie said, the more we dug into it, what we had found is what I had submitted was more apropos to the secondary treatment. Jamie's gone over that. I don't think we need to beat the dead horse, but I think what the board really needs to focus on is the first paragraph, where it talks about you can do this with the necessary permits and approvals required by 310 CMR 15. One of the approvals required by 310 CMR 15 is our request for variances. So if you were to grant our request for variances, we would be in compliance with 310 CMR 15, and this system is used. If you look at it as a practical matter, we're proposing a system that is far superior than a conventional system, and that's on us to prove to you. Jamie, could you go back to the website? Because yes. I just want to talk quickly about one of the standards that we need to meet. One of the standards we need to meet under Title V is we have to establish the level of protection is the same. And if you look at the DEP's first paragraph, it says, through broad field use in Massachusetts or other states, alternative systems with certification for general use will provide a level of environmental protection at least equivalent to that of a conventional on-site system designed in accordance with 310 CMR 15 through 15296. These systems can be used anywhere a conventional Title V system can be installed. And then there's certain testing and operator requirements that we're going to have to comply with as part of any approval. So our system here, again, I think by looking at the certification and approval for general use, as well as the opening paragraph here, I think the board will acknowledge that this system is way better than a conventional system, and we exceed the level required under Title V. We also have a manufacturer's representative here tonight. Lauren, could you chat about the system for a little bit and tell us how good it is?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, Lauren Usselton from JNR Sales and Service. We are the manufacturer's representative in all of New England for biomicrobics, and we have the FAST system that we're talking about here. We have over 3,000 systems that have been installed in Massachusetts and Rhode Island under any of the available Mass DEP permits that have been issued to the technology. And one of the big things that we like to discuss when we talk about the permits is that general DNITE permit that Jamie was talking about earlier. So that was a permit that we like to say had to be earned. We had to have 50 systems in for a period of 3 years and have a total nitrogen average of less than 19 in 90% of the systems in order to be granted that approval. We were the first technology to get that approval, and we were the only technology to hold that approval for almost 8 years. So, we have the systems in, the technology is proven in Massachusetts for both BOD, TSS, and nitrogen removal. And it's a nice system in that it's pretty simplistic in the way that it operates. We only have one moving part. So we don't have a lot of below grade pumps that, could fail that would affect treatment. We have the one component is easily accessible, and the operator can service that unit very easily. And we have 5 full-time operators that do service the systems, we offer, you know, an operation and maintenance agreement to the owner for both the service and the testing part of it, and all of the reports are sent to both the town and to the Mass DEP and to the owner. So the technology itself is based on hydraulic flows for residential applications. We kind of divide up our applications into either a residential home, or a commercial application would be anything kind of over that 2,000 gallon per day threshold. And so anything that's considered residential, we size based on hydraulic flows, and the FAST system has built into it the denitrification component. So some technologies have different models for just BOD and TSS and denitrification. The FAST denitrification is built into to the treatment system. So for a residential application like the one proposed here, the FAST would go into the second compartment of a 1,500 gallon tank. We have kind of a swap of a typical Title V where we have 500 settling and 1,000 treatment. And the FAST module goes in that 1,000 treatment compartment. The module itself is open at the bottom. So it's within that concrete tank, but the module has the media held in by kind of a grid system on the bottom, so that the treatment system itself is open to all of the capacity of the concrete tank. So that one moving part that's the above grade blower provides aeration to the unit. We have a airlift in the middle of the FAST media that is hollow, and the airlift comes from the FAST unit directly to the center of that unit. Air is pumped down into the center of the unit, and that causes displacement of the water. That allows a splash to come up on the top of what we call a splash plate, which is a plate on the top of the module, and that allows the wastewater to trickle over the entire media surface. And the other key component of the system, which is the denitrification, every FAST system has the recycle trough that's built into the splash plate. So we're constantly aerating, we have a robust aeration that's constantly circulating the wastewater, and that's handling the BOD and TSS, so the clarity of the wastewater. And that is nitrified wastewater. So you need to take that nitrified wastewater and do denitrification. So the way we do that is through that recycle trough. So on a continuous basis, while that splash is coming up, a little bit of that nitrified wastewater is caught in the recycle trough. And that allows the nitrified wastewater to go outside of the FAST module, but still within the concrete tank. And so that area outside of the module, but within our denitrification zone. So that's our anoxic zone, where that transition from nitrification to denitrification occurs. So that's on a continuous basis. The blower is continuously treating and continuously providing that nitrification and denitrification. The FAST also has a built-in outlet T, so every drop of water that comes in has to pass through that outlet T in order to get outside the tank, so that you know, the treatment has to go through the system before the effluent can leave the tank. And that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of the basic of the residential systems. And then from the FAST, it either goes to a D-box or a pump chamber. And the system operates kind of on a gallon in, gallon out. So while wastewater is introduced to the system, some wastewater exits. So it's a very simplistic process, the way that it's set up, and it's very well suited for a residential home and for, you know, for this type of application.
So in support of what we're trying to do here, Mr. Chairman, we had submitted 2 letters from 2 engineers. One was from Jamie Bissonette that said the level of protection was at least equivalent to that of a conventional Title V system. And we've also submitted a second letter from a second engineer who's not involved with the project, Richard Rium, and I believe he's come to the same conclusion. So another component of this system that makes it a little bit different than a conventional system, and Jamie or Lauren, please speak in, is the property owner has to hire an operator to maintain, inspect the system, and do whatever repairs are necessary. Jamie or Lauren, can you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. The FAST system.
Mr. Chair, through you. Before we continue going on, you know, I have to say that based on the document that was shown on the screen earlier, which I have not had an opportunity to review, but in the second paragraph of that document, it stated that the system can only be approved for use where a compliant Title V system can be installed. And if that's the case, under Title V, you cannot approve an alternative system unless it meets all of the requirements and criteria of the DEP certification. You know, unless we have something from DEP that says that this system can be used when variances are required, it can be the best system in the world, but it cannot be approved by the Board of Health.
If I can say something, Derek.
Yeah, Bob.
Derek, can I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that around, because I mean, I don't think any of us need to know all the engineering of a FAST system. We know they work, they put in all the time. That's my question, the note I made. It said that when he read it, it said, if we give variances to Title V, then they could put a Title V system in and then you could use this. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse, I think, because we could have every lot in town that comes to us and says, if you give me a bunch of variances, then I can put a Title V septic system in. I mean, to me, that's the whole, you know, do I think one septic system is going to do anything? No, honestly. Do I think these are better than a regular system for denitrification? Absolutely. But my concern is, and it's kind of what he just brought up, is if we're going to start, I was told, and some people have said I'm right and wrong, and that was something I wanted to get council's opinion on, but I was told from when I got on the board 11 years ago from Bill Garvey, the first time somebody asked for a new construction one, said you just can't give waivers, we can't to Title V for new construction. So I mean, my whole, and I never have, you can go through 11 years. So now we're getting told that if we can give a variance to show a Title V septic could go in, and now we can do an advanced treatment system to make it fit on the lot. I mean, I'm more concerned with, and I'm on record 50 times telling people, show me how I can help you. Let me figure out a way I can help you. You know, let's find a way, let's make something work. But I mean, I don't know. Everybody's saying that we could be setting precedent. We might not be setting precedent. You know, I'm just afraid that somebody's, you know, now we're just going to open up a door because the next person's going to come in and say, well, if you give me variances, then I could put one in. And if you give me variances, I can put one in. And to me, then that defeats the whole purpose of Title V, because Title V is the minimum standard. So, I mean, and if I'm wrong, the attorneys can tell me I'm wrong. And I'm more concerned about having 50 other lots going back before Title V, just like this one does, that they could have put a septic system in before Title V. And now, if we give them variances, they can still put one in 20 or 30 years later. That's my issue. My whole issue is the legality part of it. I mean, if the legality's fine, I'm sure that the septic system is going to work. I'm sure of all those things, but it's, you know, it's kind of like, that's the answer I've been trying to get for a couple of months is like, what would stop anybody else from saying before Title V, my lot was buildable. If you give me variances, it can be buildable again. And that's what I need answered.
Yeah, we're throwing Title V right out the door, basically.
Well,
yeah.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, you know, before we even get to any of those issues, you need to have a proper application in front of you. And the way that I read the document that you've been presented with, paragraph 2 on page 2 says, the system may be installed for residential facilities with design flow less than 2,000 gallons per day, where a system in compliance with 310 CMR 15 exists on site or could be built. and for which a site evaluation in compliance with 310 CMR 15 has been approved by the local approving authority. So here, we do not have a compliant Title V system existing on site, nor can a compliant Title V system be built on this site. Therefore, for that reason, it's my recommendation that you either deny this application or that you continue this proceeding to give the applicant an opportunity to demonstrate with correspondence from DEP why this system can be put in. And once we get that, then we can move on to these other questions as to whether the criteria for issuance of a variance have been met.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I see Mike Shaughnessy looking to respond to that.
Yeah, two points. My first point is with respect to reaching out to DEP. When we caught wind of this afternoon, Jamie was in touch with, was it Brett Rowe at DEP, Jamie?
Yes.
So we're working on that, and we would expect this hearing to be continued tonight. My second comment is you have to look at the regs in totality. And the question that I would ask the board, if Title V provides for the opportunity to request variances, why wouldn't we want to pursue it? The variances that we're looking for are supported by the standards that's articulated in the regulations. The first standard being, number one, are we at the same level of protection? And I think, without beating a dead horse, that most of the parties would agree that we've met. And the second component is then it's the manifest unjust provision. Why would DEP have that regulation in Title V if it was never intended to be used? And I get the argument that, you got to figure this out first. You have to have a Title V system in place, but that's not what the approval says. What it says is, with the necessary approvals required by 310 CMR 15, this certification authorizes the installation and use of the system in Massachusetts. Implicit in that is a variance approval. So I disagree with council on that, but we're still going to ask for a continuance tonight and chase down some information from DEP.
Mike, if I could interrupt here for a second, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we discuss that this certification that town council is referring to is really a misinterpretation of the regulation as it relates to, he's referring to a secondary use system, and we're looking for certification for general use treatment. So
Marty, they're looking at the correct one, the updated one that we presented to them tonight.
Well, if that's the case, we should meet the requirement for general use treatment, because we're not, our primary goal was not necessarily reduce the leaching field. And the second thing I wanted to make was with regard to I think, we can go off into all kinds of legal issues, but I think Mr. Palucci raised a good point. He wants to make sure he doesn't set precedent. But I have a letter from town council which says that the board has broad authority and that each submission has to be treated on its own merits, and that it has to meet all the requirements as set forth by the board, so that precedents would not be set just because there was an approval of this particular application, that the board had complete authority to review each situation and approve or deny based on its merits. And I think the merits are supported in this case, might not be in others, but the town council specifically said in that letter, the precedents would not be set. And that, if I might add one more point, town council also said that it would be manifestly unjust to deny this project. And I've been to court once, and I'll go to court again if I have to for taking. I hope I don't have to, but the court basically said that as long as you can provide a system that can meet the requirements, environmental requirements, and that if denial would not be manifestly unjust, that you have to grant the variances. And as town council said, it would be manifestly unjust if that were denied. But also, why would anybody ever use an advanced treatment system if you couldn't use it to comply with the regulation? So I think we're using the proper system in the proper situation. And my interpretation of the reg is that it's appropriate for general use and that it would be manifestly unjust if this application were denied. And that's what the court said. So, you know, we can put this off to another day, but I hope the board has reviewed all that documentation and all the filings and legal submissions so that they're familiar with what everyone said, town council and the court case that was decided in 2007.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, through you, I just want to, you know, I don't think we're at that point yet, but, you know, I just want to correct for the record that I have not offered an opinion that it would be manifestly unjust to deny this application. I gave an opinion as to what the board could reasonably do under a certain set of facts. And likewise, the court, when it remanded the matter in 2006, did so because there was insufficient information in the record only and did not reach a decision on that issue. So, you know, I want to make clear that I have not given an opinion on manifest injustice. And in fact, I made clear in my opinion that that is a decision that only the board can make after having a hearing, which we're having now. But, you know, where we stand right now is that based on the approval given by DEP, this system cannot be approved with variances from Title V. If we receive an alternative opinion from DEP, you know, we can move on to the other criteria. But until then, it's my position that this application cannot be approved as it sits here today.
Mr. Corbo, can I read from your letter? It says, it's my opinion that the decision to grant a variance in this case will not likely set precedent for future applications. Those are your words. So tell me how what you just said is consistent with that particular conclusion that I'm reading.
Well, Mr. Chair, through you, I'm not going to get into an argument about this, but you said two different things. I don't disagree with respect to the limitation on precedent. I do disagree that I gave an opinion that it would be manifestly unjust to deny this application.
Okay, thank you. I kind of agree.
I'm just going to read also from that letter. It said the board may reasonably conclude that the applicant has met the manifestly unjust standard. That's also in your letter.
Okay, thank you for that. But again, I think we're at a standstill until we decide whether this system can be used. Our town council adamantly it cannot be.
Yeah, we'd like to request
I think until that issue is resolved, we're just beating a dead horse here. We're just going back and forth on. Do you agree, Jamie, on that?
I do, Derek. Mr. Chair, I think that we need to request a continuance to provide a solution. I'm of the mindset that, you know, DEP doesn't lead you to a point with the variance request saying, you know, meet X and Y and doesn't give you an avenue to be able to do it. And so yeah, we're going to seek justification or clarification and possibly look at some other avenues. So I would like a continuance and possibly reach out to you guys if we need another one because sometimes DEP is not the fastest in responding. So far they've been fantastic, but I don't know how long this will take.
Okay, and I'll just take a couple more comments from everybody else just to have everything. If we need to address anything else while we're still at this meeting, I think Bob Palucci, this is your main concern also?
Yeah, my main concern is then and I'm not an engineer, so I get that a lawyer, so the manifest injust and all that, you know, I'm really not, I don't know that much about the legal terminology, but if we're saying that a pre-Title V lot it's manifestly unjust just for that sole purpose, because because of Title V, they need variances and it's technically not buildable. How does that not apply then to every other lot in town before Title V came along? I mean, then that would be the argument if you're saying, well, you know, it financially, the lot's worth money and now you're not going to let them build on it. Well, doesn't that factor into then every single other pre-Title V lot that's in the town? I mean, so that's one thing that maybe council can clarify or would like to look up at it, but because after that, then it's like Chris said, we're just throwing Title V out the window. Well, you know, if we give you enough variances, you could put a system in, so now you can put a system in. But that's the dog chasing the tail part that I keep coming around and I don't know the answer. If we're saying it's unjust because the lot was buildable and then Title V came along and now it's not buildable, then if that's a valid argument for that, then how can any lot before Title V not be buildable anymore? I mean, that I'm a very simple person and I come around and trust me, 11 years, you can watch every tape. If there was some reason specifically that this was different, this was for some reason that we could try to work with them. But I mean, the reason that because it was legal before Title V, that's every lot in the town that was before Title V. I mean, I just have a really hard time saying that that's a good enough reason to do it.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond, I think the reason being, Mr. Palucci, is the fact that in the 1980s, there was an approved plan issued by the Board of Health. A well was installed and an approval by the Conservation Commission. And then for uncontrollable means, Mr. Wackenheim was transferred to California for work purposes. When he filed for his permit expired, and when he filed for a subsequent permit, new Title V came into effect and therefore made his lot non-conforming, and he's been denied subsequently since then. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take a situation where we feel it's manifestly unjust that he had a buildable lot, the regulations changed, he had an approval, he has a well in, he had conservation approval. We're trying to present the best product that we can on site for an approval that will protect the environment the best and benefit not only my client but the environment itself and everyone. So that's kind of where the manifest unjust comes. If he had just bought a piece of property and hadn't had a filing on it, and then years later said, well, you know, I think I should be able to build, I have a variance claim, it's a lot different. And that's why, you know, in the 15, 20 years I've been doing this, I have not brought a variance request for new construction in front of this board or any board that I'm aware of. But I feel that this one meets the statute, but I do need to check to make sure that council is correct, or that Mr. O'Shaughnessy is correct in the fact of, do we need, can we get a variance? How do we deal with this certification for general use? And we're going to work to get that in writing for you from DEP.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Greg, I saw you pop back up. Did you have one other comment, Greg Corbo?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good for now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Chris, would you like to say anything before we make a motion to continue?
Yeah, sure. I got a few things. First is a question for Greg. With respect to the precedence issue, now that would be, if the board changed, then it would be a different, actually more clarification as to if the board changes, the precedence changes. Could you just explain that a little bit better?
Through you, Mr. Chair, sure. So, you know, when we're talking about, you know, precedent, with respect to variances under Title V, that's something in which the board has discretion. And so in order for a property owner to claim that a prior decision is precedent setting, the two properties have to be substantially the same in all relevant respects. So the mere fact that a prior board gave a variance does not necessarily mean that the current board is required to give a variance if there can be shown differences in the two properties and the two circumstances in which the applications are presented. So it's a complicated inquiry, and it's just simply not enough, in my opinion, for someone to say, well, you gave them a variance for new construction, therefore you have to give me a variance for new construction. In my opinion, it does not work that way.
Okay.
I have a question, Town Council. Does it have to be a whole new board? Couldn't it be within the same board if it doesn't meet the criteria? If it's not substantially the same, couldn't the same board deny it?
Yes, you don't look at who's on the board.
Right.
You look at what the basis is. Correct. And you know, the other thing I would say is that if there was a prior board that made a decision in error, that error does not have to be carried over by future boards.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Chris, any
Yeah.
other?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
So they still haven't addressed, like, well, I guess you have addressed that you want the variance for the under 20,000 square feet, which we haven't really done on anything in town. The other thing was, you know, it's been brought to our attention that, you know, New Bedford and Taunton, the reason they didn't respond originally is because they were so busy and it wasn't clear to them that it was new construction. And I think going along with that lack of clarity, and they're so busy, they say, that they may not realize that wetland behind this lot is hydraulically connected on the surface to Assawamsett Pond. So the 750 feet goes out the window, in my opinion. And it's hydraulically connected to Long Pond too. And if you need proof of that, I mean, we've got pictures of the culverts connecting on Route 18 and Highland Road. So I don't know if even Taunton said they were okay if it was less than 400, it was more than 400, but I think it's less than 400. If you go by that hydraulic connectivity there. And New Bedford still had concerns even when you told them that it was more than 400 feet away. You know, we have a lot of these come before us as repairs, and you know, we feel there's like an obligation to work with them as best we can when it's a repair. But I mean, I don't need to tell, you know, I know all of us that live in town know that how affected those waters are by these systems. And we're trying to put a new system in to replace an old failing system. But, you know, even though there was prior history with this lot, it doesn't apply anymore because that stuff is expired. You know, the applicant had time and had a grace period to make adjustments under that past approval, and they didn't act on it. So it's almost as if we're starting with a clean slate here. And when I look at like protecting those water bodies, you know, there's so many systems out there already. Like, do we need to add another one? And then, you know, and I know, never mind the precedence part, but people are going to try and come. You know, if this was to go through, and it's just going to be another, you know, multiple meeting, long, ongoing process. And you know, I feel if Taunton and Bedford wants to protect those waters, I feel like we should protect those waters too. You know, a lot of the town is already protected, and I know we try to work with people as best we can. And I just don't see our way around that part right now.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to talk about those comments, or are we going to kick them off to the next time we meet? Because the emails don't necessarily say that. The emails from Taunton and New Bedford talk about being within 400 feet of a pond, which we're not, and looking for enhanced treatment. And we're proposing that. And with respect to the other, they talk about the destruction of natural vegetation and protection and being in the vicinity of the pond. And we're not doing any of that. And we're 750 feet away from Assawapsa Pond. So I get where you're coming from, but I think we've addressed their concerns. We can talk about it now. We can talk about it the next time we're here. I'm okay with that. But I would just ask the board, just keep in mind what the purpose of Title V is. Title V is not to say, no, you can't build. The purpose of Title V is to make sure that the public health, safety, and welfare and environment are protected. And that's all we're trying to do here. And that's why we're proposing this system. The systems that has been denied in the past was a conventional septic system. We're not proposing that here because we're trying to be sensitive to the environmental component, which is why we're proposing the FAST system to get us over that level of protection hurdle. So I just ask the board members to keep that in mind.
And if I can add in too, and Mr. Chair, you can probably back this up, but in the beginning when we conceptually had come in front of the board and discussed this, the first question was, can the Lakeville Board of Health grant new construction variances at all? And I know you went on your own, but I went with the former health agent. And the response that we got, and I believe you got the same, was the Lakeville Board of Health can grant variances to anything on Title V except for 2 situations. And they both are in respect to 4 feet of continuous pervious material, not continuous, 4 feet of pervious material, which is in Title V as variances may not be granted from. All school and state and federal septic matters are done by DEP. Besides that, everything is handled by the local Board of Health. And that you guys can grant variances for anything. And that's why we're here. Didn't think that adding the advanced treatment was going to be an issue that came up today because our understanding is the board has complete discretion on variances and thought it was a nice addition to the existing system. So that's why we're seeking clarification. And I reached out to the same person that you and I both spoke with on separate occasions at the Lakeville office.
Okay, Jamie, yes, I did speak with them also, and I know Kevin Bernardo, our prior agent, went there with you after that meeting, and,
yes.
And they did say the board has discretion to approve this. It's totally up to the board whether they feel it's justified or not.
Correct.
I believe they could even approve it without treatment. You don't even need the treatment system. So that was the case from DEP and that. It's just going forward whether each board member feels that this would be acceptable to approve and met the 2 criteria needed. I understand Chris's concerns very much with new, other lots, but I'm on a per case basis, and I don't see where you'd find another lot that would have one that was already pre-approved. I understand it ran out. It should have been installed. It wasn't for the owner's circumstances of getting relocated to California. So that's my only reasoning that I was on board, with this one because of the pre-approval in 1986. If it didn't have that, if this was just a vacant lot, I wouldn't even be considering this. And now it's just a question with that system through DEP, in my opinion, if it can be granted. If DEP says you can't do it because you don't meet Title V, it's a moot point. I think this lot absolutely needs a treatment system. I don't think I would vote without one on it, just because of the location to the water, and it just needs to be protected with a full treatment system and inspected and make sure it's working properly at all times. That would be my concerns. And again, until we get clarification, I don't see we can go any further and just maybe try to, if we can get some clarification for Mr. Palucci for the next meeting so we don't have to keep going back to the same points. If it's going to set a precedent, if it's going to affect anything else, if we can get to make a vote one way or the other on how to go forward with this law. That would be all my concerns.
Mr.
That's
Maxim?
mine also. If they say this is different for some reason, that this was, you know, I mean, I just want to know what the reasons, you know, why we would approve this. Are we going to say because it had a building permit ahead of time? So would that be the reason we feel it's unjust? And then, you know, but then does that open up to, you know, it can't just be because Title V came along and it's not buildable. So we can't, that defeats Title V to me. So are we going to say because it had a building permit before, and now does that open up, if anybody ever had a building permit or applied for a septic system before, are we opening that up? That's my concern. I'm not trying to stop you from building on your lot that you've had all these years. I'm actually on your side of the table down in Chatham right now. My aunt and uncle bought a property when I was a kid that they wanted to retire on, and I'm dealing with the exact same stuff. There's a river across the street. Everything changed. They've been paying taxes since I was still in high school. And I'm going through all of that, trying to get enough perks, trying to find a way to get onto the lot. I mean, I'm dealing with the same thing. And I know, you know, my language isn't deep enough or else I could tell you how I really thought about it. I think it's, you know, I honestly think that if a law changes, zoning, conservation, or something that could affect a lot, it should be notified. You know, in the tax bill, something should go out and say to any raw parcel of land, say a change is coming. You may want to investigate a consultant engineer. It could affect your property because just like you, just like my aunt and uncle, just like 95% of the people in this town, I'm sure, are in the country, they're not following up on DEP daily. They're not following up on the wetlands protection. They don't do that. So it's not reasonable that people know that this is happening. But, you know, but on the flip side, though, it's just defeating Title V if we just say, well, you know, it could have had one before, so now it can have one now. And I just want you to know, I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to hurt you or cause you harm. I'm just concerned with that we got probably 200 other lots in town that aren't buildable anymore because of Title V. And I just don't, like Chris said, I don't want to open it up that everybody can start coming in and now I'm caught between a rock and a hard place because the reason we approved it was because before Title V it was approved. I mean, so that's just what I need to get answered to go forward and hopefully we can help you.
I appreciate that. You know, I understand, Mr. Palucci, and you're basically coming from the same place that I am. And I can sympathize with where you are in your situation. You know, I've been working on this for almost 40 years, actually, coming back to the board. And I never received notification. I had no idea Title V had come in. And since I'd been relocated, I wasn't able really to focus on anything and no one ever notified me. So I'm not a real estate person. I wasn't involved in all those kinds of regulations and requirements. And all of a sudden I went to follow up on stuff I had already started. I had gotten a building permit. I spent the money to put a well in. I must have done 3 or 4 perks on the lot. I was doing all this work. And then, you know, when my folks got ill and I got relocated, I came back to it, found that Title V had been put into effect, and now I had to deal with that. So that's why I was in the situation. And when I read through Title V, I saw that it wasn't absolute, that it actually gave you alternatives to work around the requirement. So it just wasn't hard and fast. And it comes back to the level of environmental protection that you need to have, and the advanced treatment provides that, which I think goes back to what Mr. Maxim was saying. We need that advanced treatment, and I think it's good to put that in. Otherwise, we'd have to go with a standard system. There may be a standard system that could work, but we want to try to protect the environment, and I think we have that. The other requirement that it says in Title V to get a variance, once you've proven that you have protection of the wetlands or protection of the environment, it says that to deny it can't be manifestly unjust. And in that regard, it goes into all the circumstances, and it says each and every situation must be evaluated based on those individual facts and relevant circumstances surrounding the property. So I'd go back to what town council said. It says, based on that, the board may reasonably conclude that the applicant has met the manifest injust standard. And I think that in the court's ruling back in 2007, I believe, they addressed that, you know. So I think we meet both of the standards, but I understand the concern. And as it relates to Taunton, I have an email here. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it says they would oppose any new construction within 400 feet of Assawamsett Pond. This is not within 400 feet of Assawamsett Pond. Assawamsett, it's 750 feet.
We all know that wetland is a pond most of the year, and it's connected to that pond. I disagree with that part of it. I'm sorry. You're not going to get me to change my mind on that.
Okay, no, I'm not arguing with you, but I lived there right on that. I lived at 2 Old Powder House, and I tell you what I saw from that wetlands, or supposedly the tributary to the, it's not as severe as people are representing it.
Well,
honestly, I lived there for over 10 years. So, but I respect what you're saying.
2010, it was underwater. Like that lot was underwater, wasn't it?
No, it was
not the lot. Part of down below off the road, there was some floodplain in the back. Yeah,
in the back. But I lived at 2 Old Powder House. I wouldn't live in a flood area, which is right next to 4. And I walked 4 during the winter when it rained and during the snow, and it was never a problem. You can walk it yourself during rainstorms and you'll see. But to my mind, the property is dry, it's been perked, and it meets the manifestly unjust provision. And I think with a good system, an advanced system, it reaches the environmental protection equivalent to what's provided in Title V. So that's how I see it. But I respect what you guys are saying. Honestly, I know you're not working against me. I know you're trying to work with me. And I want to work with you. I love living in Lakeville. I'd still be there today if I wasn't relocated by my company. But I still have a lot of friends in Lakeville. So I'm not doing anything to harm the town. And back when I filed that, went to court, filed that lawsuit, and I prevailed, my attorney said, well, geez, let's go back to the board. And you know why I didn't go back, because I felt that the board had been biased. But they said, look, even if they turn you down, you can sue for taking. And I said, well, geez, I don't want to do that. And they said, you have a textbook case here and you probably would prevail. And I said, no, because I was told by people in the town that if the town lost in that taking case, it would be financially catastrophic, that it could bankrupt the town back then. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I have lots of friends there. I know lots of people in the town. I really like Lakeville. I'm not going to do that. But I have to tell you that if I'm, pushed to the wall here and I can't get approval for this, then that's my only alternative. So hopefully we can all come to some agreement. I'm willing to work with you. I know Jamie. We're willing to do anything we possibly can to work with you to make this possible. We're very flexible, but I hope that you'll see our particular point of view. I see yours, and I want to work with you to make things right for the town and also protect the environment. So
okay, Derek, I think unless anybody else has any comments, I think we've kind of touched on everything.
I got one more question for the applicant, Mr. Wackenheim. At any time, did you concede that it was a non-buildable lot?
No, not really.
No, not really.
No, I mean, at some point I was, well, the board told me that I couldn't get a permit. So, I mean, it became unbuildable. At that point, I guess I said that the board had turned me down so many times. I conceded it wasn't buildable in my own mind. I don't know what else I could do at that point. I mean, I had no other alternatives. I could have sued for taking, but I didn't want to. But the board kept turning me down. So in my mind, it became useless. And that's why we have to review the alternatives to Title V, because it says that if you are deprived of substantial use, then that has been, then that denial is manifestly unjust. And the board denied me of the use of my property. So I guess you could say, you know, back then in my mind, once they turned me down, it became unbuildable in my mind.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Chris, anything else? You good?
No. Did Ed anything?
Ed, we haven't heard from Ed. Anything just you'd like to clarify before the next meeting, before we continue this?
Yes, just to correct a statement. When Jamie had mentioned that it was the wrong approval letter, in my discussions with DEP, we were discussing the correct approval letter. It was not the other one that he had mentioned before. So, and it was my interpretation, as Greg said as well, that, you know, it had to be in compliance with 310 CMR 1500 and not, and since you're asking for a variance from 15 to 11, then it was not in compliance. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, you all set to continue? You're good with it, right? No other
Yes, sir.
comments you want to? Okay.
The only other thing is, and not tonight, but if Greg could get back to us, because like the applicant just stated again, that if we don't let him use his lot, then it's manifest injustice, because if it's not buildable. But like then I go back to the point that every lot before Title V that we don't let them build a house on, then they're all manifest injustice. I mean, that's my sticking point that I just would like to bring up, and because, you know, that to me is, if it's the fact that, well, Title V came along, if we don't give you variances, you can't build on it, so that's not fair because now I can't use my lot. That goes right back to what I said before. That's every other lot before Title V. So it's just my same point I keep coming back to, that there needs to be, for me, another reason other than that. And I know about the permits, and I don't want this to go another half hour. Everybody said what they had to say, but that's just something I'd like, when Greg had some time, he could clarify that to us. So, and with that, I'll make a motion to continue this till our next meeting, or till whenever the applicant's attorney or engineer lets us know that they are ready to proceed.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Bob Palucci?
Aye.
Chris Spratt?
Aye.
Derek Maxim? Aye. All right,
Mr. Maxim, do you know the next meeting date?
2 weeks from today.
Okay.
September 16th.
Thank you.
16th.
September 16th, it's continued to, if
All
you're
right,
ready.
thanks.
Thanks for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
Okay. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Okay, next, let me find my agenda again. Discuss proposed youth football and cheer guidelines. Chris Spratt, I believe you asked to put this on, and I believe we should have Josh maybe on the line for this one to speak. Okay,
Yep,
Chris, do you want to speak first on this one? How you doing?
Sure. So Josh sent this over to myself and Ed, and I felt we should put it on the meeting, mainly just for transparency reasons, where I've been connected to the league for 7, almost 8 years, I think. And I didn't want to just simply, say, Ed just rubber stamp it and say, hey, it looks good, with my connections to the league. So I figured I'd bring it before you guys, just so it would be out in the open in a public forum. And, but I mean, I think Josh did a pretty good job putting this together. If he wants to speak to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, our goal is to, I'm sure you're all aware that football at all levels is canceled in Massachusetts for the fall. So, we're trying to keep the kids as active as we can while, maintaining social distance and abiding by all of the guidelines. So we went through the most recent guidelines, which I had attached to my proposal, and we feel we can modify the game such that it's consistent with those guidelines. Basically, what we're proposing is that we would run a internal only, so it would only be Lakeville, Freetown, and Berkeley kids flag program. There would only be, 7 kids on the field on each team, and you know, we would require them to wear masks when they're in close proximity, like covering a defensive back, covering a receiver, etc. Balls would be sanitized between plays. And again, the goal is to keep the kids moving. We're currently just doing conditioning drills and things of that nature, but we would like to expand to offering some type of competition. The other benefit to it is that it would allow the cheer side of our program, if we have some form of competition, it would give them something to cheer for. Whereas if we're just doing conditioning and practice, it's difficult to give them something meaningful to do. So that's our goal, and we just want to, we've spoken with Freetown, and we also want to speak with you guys because we'd like to continue to operate in both locations. We use the field over there as well, and we just want to be, above board and make sure that we're complying with everything from a health standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Ed Cullen, I know you had a comment on this when you'd looked into this. Can you just comment on it?
Sure. Josh, the document Josh gave us was pretty well thought out. He really went into the state regs and tried to comply with them the best he could. It looked good. Like I said, he eliminated the blockers and things like that. So overall, yeah, we go by the state guidelines, and this is in compliance with the state guidelines.
Okay. Great. So we can reach out to the Parks Department regarding use of the fields, provided we abide by these guidelines.
We'll probably take a vote on it. Bob Palucci, would you have comments on this one?
No, I'm fine with flag football, and especially if there's only 7 kids on each side. I mean, it's, and as long as they're not in each other's face on the line, and if they are, they get the masks on. I mean, it's about as safe as baseball or anything else that they're doing. So I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Chris Spratt, any other comments? I know you.
I'm good with that. I liked it. I just wanted to make, I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to rubber stamp it and be like, yeah, it's good. I wanted to make sure I brought to you guys, just.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Okay. Yes, I agree also. I think that kids should be allowed to play sports and just do it in the safest way to make sure everybody's safe. So I'm fine with it also.
All right, I'll make a motion then that we allow the flag football season to proceed with the conditions that he outlined in his letter and presented to us on the Lakeville fields.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Bob Palucci?
Aye.
Chris Spratt?
Aye.
Eric Maxim? Aye. Thank you for that, Josh.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
Okay, and can I just say one more thing, though? Is that going to have the same, because I didn't get that whole copy printed up. It's on my computer, and I can't really see it. Does that have the same conditions, though, like they did place on Little League? That's 1 adult and 1 child. Ed, do you know that?
Yeah, he didn't go into so much the spectators, but that is a state guideline, and like I said, so he will have to follow that state guideline.
Yeah, I think it was 50 spectators and 25 participants on the field, I think is what I read in the guidelines. So that's what we would abide by.
Yeah,
I think it's 1-to-1. So one
parent.
One parent for every child.
Okay, that's fine. We can. I'll add that to the guidelines, and we'll abide by that.
Yeah, well, having the 2 separate locations will help make it easier to spread people out too.
True. Yep.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda, discuss tobacco control compliance check. Ed, I'll just turn that over to you for a second, and just if you found an amount we need to approve or what we need to do with that.
Yeah, so we have to approve the compliance check we're required to do for the people who sell tobacco, make sure they're selling it to people of the proper age. So we do hire someone to do that. And so that's all it is an approval for that.
We were including vape in this too, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We do it every year. I think we have to. The fees we charge for the licenses cover the kids, so I don't have a problem.
Okay. Thank
Next year, we may have to add marijuana to it if we have a retail location open.
Okay. Do we need to approve an amount, Ed, or just approve to go ahead with this?
You can't really approve an amount because the amount can vary depending if sometimes they purchase things in the store. So it's better just to approve it rather than try to do an exact amount.
Okay.
It's approximately like $400 to $450.
Okay. Bob, you'd like to make a motion to all the compliance checks?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the compliance checks under Ed's guidance, sending out the kids to check on that.
Chris, you still there? Do we have a second?
Oh, sorry. Second. I was reading.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Bob Palucci?
Aye.
Chris Pratt?
Aye.
Derek Maxim? Aye. All right, thank you for that, Ed. Under old business now, we'll just discuss any pending items, which I'm not aware of any. Does Bob, do you have any that you're aware of, pending items?
No, I'm good.
Chris, Brett, any pending items?
No.
Okay, and then I'll go down to Ed and ask him, and then if there's none for you, Ed, maybe we can just go on to the announcements of the EEE and COVID.
Okay, I know for EEE, many of you heard about the aerial spraying that we did several weeks ago. That turned out to be very successful. They had very good weather, and they did testing afterwards, and they found an 80% reduction in mammal-biting mosquitoes, which is very good. Also, we're getting into colder weather, which is good. But I want to make clear, there's still a risk out there. So we still need to take precautions. You know, the mosquitoes are out there. They still do have EEE. We've had 2 in nearby, 1 in Halifax and 1 in Middleborough. So it's 2 human cases of EEE. So we are in a higher risk area, not in a high risk, where our risk is moderate. But I mean, it's still precautions need to be taken. But overall, I think we're through the worst of it. As for COVID, Lakeville had done very well. We went a whole month without any cases, but in the past 2 weeks, we've had 8 cases. It's unfortunate. So just, again, trying to be aware, make everyone aware that COVID is still out there. We have not beat this yet. We still have to take the precautions we've been doing for the past months to bring these numbers down. Like I said, Lakeville has done a very good job overall. The last couple of weeks, we obviously probably relaxed a little bit in some places, but like I said, this is beatable, and we proved that, and we just need to keep up with the social distancing and the mask wearing, and we can bring those numbers down again. Because remember, we're sending kids back to school, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. We want our kids in school, and we want to keep them there and want to keep them safe. So the more we do to prevent it, the safer those kids are. So that's our main goal.
Yeah, if I can just chime in on that. It was funny this morning, I saw the news and Lakeville was on it. I actually sent a picture of it to Ed because I saw how we were in the second highest group now out of the 4 groups in the state. We had jumped up that fast, and I wasn't aware of that. So, so just to support what Ed's saying, I think it's very important. Like you said, kids are going back to school. Flu season's coming. And, you know, our local restaurants are already struggling, and pretty soon they won't be able to have outdoor dining anymore. So if everybody works together to try to keep these numbers down so the state doesn't go backwards, I mean, I'm afraid a lot of these people and businesses, if they had another shutdown over the winter, they might not ever open up again. these are all our neighbors, our friends. Lakeville's a very small town, so we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it to try to keep the kids safe at school, so they're not bringing anything home. We're trying to do it to keep the local businesses open, you know, at the limited that they are now, but it's, you know, better than nothing. And I again encourage, it's not a Board of Health issue, but you know, I encourage people to, you know, remember that small business in our town. They're struggling right now, and you know, grabbing that extra pizza from somebody or doing something with a local person goes a long way right now. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Bob. That is all for tonight's meeting. Anybody like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, Bob Palucci?
Aye.
Chris Pratt?
Aye.
Derek Maxim? Aye.